Hello, my Degens. How we doing? Today we're talking pure off-season talk, but we're talking regression. I know that that's a common topic in the dynasty streets and redraft and all that. But we're gonna have some surprise guys on the docket right now. We're talking about the obvious ones and then the ones you might not expect. I have a special guest, so stay tuned and we'll be right to it.
19, swear to God, I'm taking over 19. Hey, back, hit a quarter million. When it's here, pretty chilly. I've been trying to find me really well. Silly, yo, I be gone like Cheerio. Really though, swear we finna get the gold. You the goat, but the most been getting old. Standing still, yeah, I'm getting way too cold. Like it's uno dos, I go single on these hoes. Doesn't songs, doesn't shows. Guess that's just one way to grow.
All right, how we doing? Like I said, I have a special guest backstage. This man probably doesn't need introduction if you are on the Player Profiler team. He does the Lord's work backstage most time. He's the analytics guru. He's doing all the tough numbers. He's crunching everything. But if you don't know this man, this is Evan Ringler. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you joining me, man. I really liked what you did with Mine and Mansion over there with Podfather. I think that you have nice hot takes, but also they're not so hot because you are crunching these numbers and you are doing all of the tough work. It's not just like I'm throwing these out there with no backing. You know, a lot of times you go on Twitter and these hot takes come from, somebody just, piggybacking on another take or not really having any analytics to back it up. You're doing everything. So, the regression that we're going to be talking about today is backed by numbers. And I am traditionally a very tried and true tape guy. I grind the tape. I look at, different situations and team breakdowns. And ultimately I get most of my value and line of thinking from that. But I leave up the analytics to trusted guys like yourself. Before we get into it, man, just tell everybody how you got involved in Player Profiler and how you got into the fantasy side of analytics.
Yeah, so I came on as an intern back in 2023. And then before last season, I actually got my current role, which is the director of analytics. Now I am running all the metrics you see on the site, and I'm involved in all the rankings you see as well. And I couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah. And you couldn't be more, better at your job, I think, because it's accurate. You definitely put in the work and it's appreciated, and you definitely make things a lot easier referencing for me, because I constantly will go onto Player Profiler and look, at the numbers and the rankings and kind of get a lot of my value. I think through tape and then I check through your numbers. So it's appreciated on my end.
Sure. And I always appreciate film guys like yourself, because that's something that I just cannot do.
Yeah, it's a lot of space bar movement. It is a lot of grinding, but I think that's what got me into doing content in the first place, because I always watch tape. I always just, and then I would go get drinks with my buddies after work and talk about what I saw with Todd Gurley's rookie year run and stuff. And you're just going deep into it and picking up guys in the home league that nobody knows about was really what that was about. And then it just kind of blossomed from there. But let's get into it, man. We're going to talk some obvious regression first. I think the first guy that we are going to touch on is positive regression, and I think this is somebody that everyone's talking about, but we're looking at Trey McBride. So when you look at last year's number, Trey McBride got 111 targets. I don't see those targets going anywhere. I don't think, obviously people have Marvin Harrison Jr. as a breakout, but I think there's enough targets on that team where, ancillary pieces outside of those two guys, it's not going to project to any eating involving when it comes to taking away. He had 1,146 yards and then the 2 touchdowns is what we're probably going to be talking about here. Evan, why are you big on McBride improving on these numbers this year? And give me the skinny about why exactly you think these numbers are just projected to improve.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple case that, I'm sure everybody's heard before. But last year he had 147 targets, 111 receptions, and only scored 2 touchdowns. That's something, or 2 receiving touchdowns at least. That's something that's not going to continue into the future. That's a touchdown rate under 4%. And that's just not something that is sustainable. He also has 32 red zone targets over the last 2 years, but only 5 touchdowns on those. And that's just not sustainable. We see touchdown rate regress towards the league average, whether that's positive or negative. And in Trey McBride's case, that is positive.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much analysis involved in the Trey McBride. I think it's just the fact that he is there so often. He is a red zone target. He's probably the number 1 red zone target. And the fact that he only reeled in 2 touchdowns last year, it's not going to happen 2 years in a row. It's just, there's no way. Another very obvious regression candidate, and this is going the other way, is James Cook. So James Cook hit 16 touchdowns last year. And I think there's a lot of rumblings. Obviously, we're talking about his contract breakdown, and really just him being unhappy, and a lot of his production was on touchdowns. So if we're going to be dipping down on touchdowns, I have been banging this drum a little bit here, but James Cook has been the best dynasty sell possible that you can imagine in the offseason. And I think that still stands right now. But he totaled 207 carries and a little bit over 1,000 yards with 16 touchdowns last year. And we're looking at a team that doesn't really have another guy, but they also, I think, are making more of a concerted effort to be a pass. I think Josh Allen wants a pass first offense. I think he's wanted it for quite a while now. Obviously, they have been playing the safe game, and the weapons around him don't really scream, we're going to pass first over here. But James Cook is not an extremely efficient guy in general, so the fact that he fell into the end zone 16 times is an outlier for me. Tell me a little bit about James Cook and any information you have about what we would need to back this take up.
Yeah, so he had one of the most touchdown reliant seasons out of a high-end fantasy running back in recent memory. And to keep it super simple, from 2023 to 2024, James Cook in both years had an expected points per game of exactly 13.6. In 2023, he scored 13.7 real points per game, so right at expected. But last year, he scored 17.1 real points per game. So we should expect that to come down towards that expected number rather than sticking at that 17.1 actual points per game. So in my projections, he comes out more as an RB2 rather than the RB1 he was last year.
Yeah, I feel like that's his wheelhouse right there. I don't think anybody really saw James Cook getting 16 touchdowns on a Josh Allen offense where, he's going to vulture half of those away. And, just generally speaking, I think it was a lot of luck involved in that. Now, I mean, those were the obvious guys. Those are the ones that I just wanted to touch on just for the sake of having these guys up front and center. But the less talked about guys is what I'm more interested in the pod. The guys that you might not think will regress, that might, not improve on their numbers. But this first guy, right? So the situation, it's juicy, right? So we're talking about the Minnesota Vikings. We're talking about a new quarterback, JJ McCarthy. I like the player. I like the prospect, but I don't know how this transition happens and what it looks like as far as the team breakdown. But we're looking at Hawkinson being a fully healthy player, and then Justin Jefferson obviously getting his money. I mean, it's just a lot of, and then there's the backfield with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason and these guys that, I think that they're going to still get that run that they always get. So there's a lot of mouths to feed over here. And then there's Jordan Addison. So Jordan Addison, obviously getting the 3-game suspension to start the season. He has been a red zone machine. The first season that he had was 10 touchdowns. Last season was 9 touchdowns. He's not really that guy. He is more of the middle line guy, like playing out of the slot in middle of the field, dink and dunking, he's not a deep throw end zone target standardly. But I think that's how they've been using him, especially with Hawkinson kind of not being in the picture, So Jordan Addison last year, total reception 63, 875 yards, and then the 9 touchdowns, like I mentioned there. Aside from the the suspension. Like we know that he's not going to be on the field for the first 3 games. That's not really involved in what we're talking about here. We made the show sheet before that even dropped, to be honest with you. But Jordan Addison, the player, could still produce at a decent level, but the touchdowns is what keeps him at that wide receiver 2 range. So tell me why Jordan Addison is probably going to be a regression candidate this year.
Yeah, so over his career, 2 seasons, he has a touchdown rate of 14.3%. So 14.3% of his receptions turn into touchdowns. The only comparable wide receivers over that same span are Mike Evans, T. Higgins, and Cortland Sutton. These are very different players than Jordan Addison. They're big body end zone threats, just jump ball artists in a way. Jordan Addison is not that. He does see a lot of deep touchdowns, like deep shots from Sam Darnold, especially last year. Number one, I don't think we should expect to see as many deep shots with JJ McCarthy. That's just not really his game. But also we should expect more touchdowns to go to the other players in the offense. Justin Jefferson is at 8.8% versus Addison's 14.3% touchdown rate. And Hawkinson's all the way down at 4.3%. So we should definitely predict more touchdowns to go to those guys who seem to profile more as end zone threats over Jordan Addison. And then there's also just the offense is going to run the ball more. They signed 2 interior offensive linemen to large free agent contracts, and they traded for Jordan Mason. That tells me that they want to run the ball more and protect their young quarterback. Also, Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson are fully healthy now, which we haven't seen much throughout Addison's career. Addison will have to run incredibly pure and somewhat lucky to pay off at his wide receiver 37 ADP. And that was what I thought before he got a 3-game suspension. So I am very much out at this point.
So if you have the full ADP charts up there right now, who's a couple wide receivers in the range up and down between Addison? If you have that up right now, let's just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, you kind of caught me off guard there. I can pull it up though.
Sorry, I thought you had it front and center. We can talk a little bit while you're looking that up, but I think I'm very curious to see who is around Addison's range, because a lot of guys right now are looking at this 3-game suspension, especially in Dynasty or in, if you're trading in redraft or whatever it is that you have. You can catch somebody on a rebuild. You send Addison over, you get somebody that you can get production immediately from, and I think that's the game you have to play a little bit, especially when Addison's looking at regression. People might not see it that way. People might think, all right, well, I'm going to get a young wide receiver that's still going to set and forget, get 10 touchdowns a year. And I think I don't have it up right now, but while we're looking it up, I think there's definitely quite a few guys in that range, 25, 26. Why, like that? They're just, I would take over Addison so fast,
Yeah, the guys around him in ADP among wide receivers on Underdog right now are Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jerry Jeudy. I'm not so much into Jacoby Myers, Stephon Diggs, Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed. I'm into all of these guys except for Jerry Jeudy.
I don't think anybody's sending Matthew Golden or Emeka Egbuka, but you would be surprised at this point, if I think especially Matthew Golden is somebody I'm ready to walk back my takes on all day. And it's not that camp hype does that to me, but I've been watching just everything that he does, his movements, the way that he separates. It's not something I thought would translate to the NFL just because his analytic profile is not good. Generally speaking, like I looked at his numbers, his breakout age, everything that, his dominator rating, all that stuff didn't really match up to what I saw on tape. But if you can find somebody that is analytically out on Matthew Golden and you trade Jordan Addison straight up for him, I think I'm in on that. I think I would take Matthew Golden over Addison at this point right now. I think Golden's going to profile as the one, and you want to go for a guy that is in that 1 range on their team. And it's not so cut and dry, but when you're looking at, a team that has Justin Jefferson, even if Addison improves on these, he's never going to be the one in the offense. And I don't think he's ever going to outproduce Hawkinson as far as targets go. I think they're going to be like cutting probably 1A, 1B as far as the targets go outside of Justin Jefferson. So there's just too much going on. And I think that it's a good time especially with this, if you're looking in Dynasty and you're looking at teams that want to shed points or are rebuilding, they might be interested in Addison. They might be like, hey, I want to get some points off my team. I want to improve my pick and then, get this guy for the future. And you could probably trade him for somebody a little older that's going to produce at a higher level for the next couple of years. But we're going to move to a whole team. So these guys are teammates. We're going to go right to a team. And that team is the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, we know that Rashee Rice is probably looking at a pending suspension. Mahomes, for what it wasn't bad last year. He wasn't like a bad quarterback in real life or in fantasy for that matter, but he was definitely not anything close to what we used to see from Mahomes. We saw the fall off of Mahomes and I'm you're on a Dynasty pod, so I'm going to refer to Dynasty all the time, but in the Dynasty streets, it was incredible. The fall off that we saw from Mahomes. I got him in the middle of second rounds, in the early third rounds, and this is in the range. I saw Bo Nix and Drake May go before him. I saw, like that's the tier of quarterback that he's in right now. And, I'm all for building for the future in Dynasty, but what are we doing with Mahomes, man? I like, you still look at a down year and he got almost 4,000 yards with 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. It's not a bad year by any means. It's just a little bit down for Mahomes. And, people think that this is the downward spiral, that they think this is the start of Mahomes completely spiraling down and becoming, the end of like the Kirk Cousins type of trajectory where, he cooks, and then all of a sudden he just falls off. I'm not in that mold. I've never been in that mold. I don't think that a lot of people in our brand over here have been out on Mahomes. I know that a few people are definitely down on him a little bit. But tell me a little bit about your take on Mahomes and why did you put him on this list? Because this is your curated list right here. These are the guys I said, give me some guys, and you picked Mahomes. So tell me why you picked Mahomes as a regression candidate.
Yeah, so his expected fantasy points last year looked pretty dang good, honestly. He was a top 8 quarterback in there. But the reason he underperformed, a lot of it was on the deep balls, and specifically to Xavier Worthy. In the regular season last year, he threw to Worthy 20-plus yards downfield 17 times. Only 3 of them were caught, and only 6 of them were even catchable. And then the playoffs, they connected 4 times on 4 targets on those deep balls, 2 of them in the Super Bowl for touchdowns. Over the full season, Mahomes ranked 34th in deep ball completion percentage and 26th in deep ball catchable pass rate, which is something that I do not expect to continue at all. I mean, I just trust him to rebound because I think he is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, if not the best. And specifically, when Rashee Rice returns, I expect these two to connect on a lot more big plays this year. And while Rice is out, Worthy can see more underneath stuff as well, just to boost his floor a little bit. When Rice returns, I think this passing offense will be the best we've seen from Kansas City since 2022. And a big part of that could be their new left tackle, Josh Simmons.
Yeah, I'm all in on this. I actually did a pod that is going to be released at 9:00 tonight. But I did talk about the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and I talked about how they're lined up to have a pass-first offense, like to have that early 2020 type of offense where we saw Tyreek Hill and Kelsey in their primes, and they were running around the field everywhere, and Mahomes was just slinging it all over. We talk about obviously having Rice and Worthy on the field at the same time for the first year ever. But then you can go even deeper and talk about Jalen Royals being a pure wide receiver 3 for this team where they've lacked a wide receiver 3. I think the best one they had at points of time was MVS. They didn't really have anybody else that could be a catchable target for Mahomes. And then you want to talk about the backfield where obviously Pacheco's the ground and pound guy, but like they drafted Brashard Smith in the backfield. And I think he's being severely overlooked when it comes to the passing game because he was a wide receiver majority of his college career. He was a wide receiver for 3 years, and then he transferred to SMU and then became a hybrid running back. But that's somebody that's going to be working out of the slot. He's going to be lining up on the outside. He's going to be worked all over the field. He's just a weapon. And I think that we're seeing in camp that he's being used like that, dump off passes, slant routes, like he's going to be back there with Pacheco. I think they're going to be working tandem together, and he's going to be breaking out. And I think it's going to be PPR magic. When we talk about Mahomes with a pass catching back, I mean, Jerick McKinnon was a league winner 2 years ago. Like there's so many pass catching backs on Kansas City. I can't even, they're just random no-name guys or journeyman guys that have found incredible value. And Brashard Smith's not a journeyman by any means. He's a young dude that has incredible skills. And I think they're getting him, fresh out of college. The fact that they have somebody in this role for the next couple of years is going to bode well for Mahomes. He's going to have that little safety blanket that Kelsey used to be. I think that, we're going to see the regression. If we're going to talk regression, I think Kelsey's a candidate for downward a little bit, but that's not on our list. So we're not going to go there. I'm not going to talk about him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on Brashard Smith. I think he's a fantastic target. He's definitely going to make the roster, and I think that he will have a role pretty much immediately as that pass catching back over Pacheco or Kareem Hunt. He's just a better pass catcher day one than those guys. And I'm not convinced that guys like Elijah Mitchell or Carson Steele will make the team. So I'm all in on Brashard Smith. There are so many great rookie running backs, specifically team RB2, RB3s that are just fantastic targets at the moment. Go get all of them is what I would say. Specifically on Worthy and Mahomes, just the case is that on these deep targets, we should expect them to connect much more often this year, and that'll lead to a lot more long touchdowns and a lot more fantasy points. Because, I mean, we've seen Worthy's downfield ability. He can certainly do it.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be actually kind of nice not having Rice out there, because it will give them a little bit of time to get the timing down, to get that chemistry going, in real game speed. It's obviously great in practice. You can see him catching balls from Mahomes in practice, but until you're lined up and beating defenders in real time, it takes a little bit. It takes a game or two to really get into that, even though we just see Worthy busted a long touchdown last season in game one. I think that, just the more they're on the field together, the more he relies on Worthy, trustworthy. He had 638 yards. I think that's going to, and I think he's got 1,000-yard receiver this year. I think that's probably pretty locked in. I don't think that Worthy's going to be a consistent, like, set it and forget it guy, but I think that he's going to have a lot more boom games this year than he did last year, because he was like very boom bust, very like Jameson Williams-esque, Mike Williams-esque, where you didn't really, it was hard to trust him if he was going to be a worthy game or not. But I think that, once the whole team settles in a little bit, I think we're going to see an explosive offense. I think we're going to see them back in the Super Bowl this year for sure.
Yeah, and if you just look at what that offense has changed this offseason, first of all, they have a healthy Isaiah Pacheco, which was the opposite of what we saw last year. He was a nightmare. They've added Josh Simmons, who is just getting glowing reports at left tackle. Besides that, they have a healthy Hollywood Brown as well. And then they'll have a healthy Rashee Rice when he returns. Plus, year two, Xavier Worthy should be better than year one. So it's just across the board, everything except Kelsey, we should expect to be way better about this offense in 2025.
Yeah, I'm totally in on that. I agree with that. Before we get into the next names that we're doing, you mentioned rookies, guys, and we are a rookie pod. We talk about rookies all the time. We are in best ball drafts. We are in all sorts of things. And most of the time when I'm referencing rookie drafts, I'm talking about FastDraft, and I'm talking about their Origins draft. So the Origins draft is unique. You're going in, it's rookies only. And it's just a fast draft with rookies only. It doesn't exist in the best ball streets. It's not really out there. It's kind of a new niche. It's exciting. It's fun. And if you're already deep into it, like I was really doing a lot of drafts with FastDraft when it first came out with the Origins this year. It was so good, so many values, but there's still like tons of value. So before we get into it, I'm going to let Podfather talk about the Origins a little bit, and then we'll come right back.
It is a damn shame we only get to do a handful of rookie drafts every season. After doing all this rookie analysis, you want more bites at the apple. And that's why we have the Fast Draft Origins tournament. You draft 6 rookies, the top 4 into your lineup. It's best ball style, and it's just $5 to win a $5,000 first prize. So if you're passionate about Taj Brooks or RJ Harvey, get on Fast Draft and use your favorite creator's code to get a $50 deposit match. A $50 deposit match to go make thousands of dollars drafting the rookies that you know and love.
Apple bite gets me every time, man. I don't know. I always choose that one for the apple bite, or it's the breakout finder. Have you watched his breakout finder? Actually, I think oh man, I might not have it anymore. We might have. I don't have it, dude. Oh, I was going to drop the breakout finder one. Wait, is this it? Hold on.
Oh, the breakout finder is live. That's right.
Yeah, that's the one. That's my guy. I love that. All right. So yeah, if you want to go on a fast draft, you go in there, use our promo code DEGEN, DEGEN. Also go into fast draft on YouTube and check out the pod that we just dropped yesterday. So Jagger and myself talked about some of the best values in the rabbit draft. So that's the best ball, no rate contest. And if you go in there, watch that pod, there's going to be a lot of talk of guys that you can get super late or going undrafted for that matter. But let's talk about somebody that I think everyone has on deck, but doesn't really understand the magnitude of regression that we're talking about. Like somebody that could go from QB 25. I'm not sure where he was. He didn't play a full season, but he was definitely down there. To possibly, top 3 quarterback this year, especially when we're talking about the whole team breakdown, the whole situation. And somebody that I talked to you backstage about is he has a really good year every other year. It's like he's due, it is what it is. But we're talking about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, I think he had total stats of last year, 1,978 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And that was in 8 games. So he played 8 games last year, obviously not fully healthy. I mean, the Cowboys in general were just a giant mess. If we're talking about whole team breakdown, it just wasn't a year to be a successful quarterback. It was just tough. He was in a tough situation. But obviously we know what they did. They added George Pickens over there. Giving him a second target aside of CeeDee Lamb, and in the past couple of years, it's been CeeDee Lamb and then ancillary pieces. I think this opens up CeeDee Lamb one. I think that this benefits CeeDee Lamb greatly. Obviously, he's not, dealing with the double coverage and it's very hard to separate. Obviously, he had no problem with it, but very hard to separate when you're the only guy they have to defend at that point. So we're looking at the whole team being more fluid, having more ability to make plays. I think that's just going to open up the lanes for Dak Prescott. He's going to have Ferguson, Pickens, obviously CeeDee Lamb, and then they're out there trying to find a running back. I don't know what they're doing right now, but there's talk of them trying to trade for a running back, and I'm not sure how that's all going to break down with Jaden Blue and the backfield's a mess, and that's been the case for quite a while. Obviously, we saw Dowdle eat in garbage time last year, but that was, an outlier season. I think just the fact that nobody was even doing anything on that team. But tell me your case on Dak Prescott and why you have him so high this year.
Yeah, so I think this whole passing offense is set to explode this year. It's kind of everything is breaking right for them. In terms of regression, though, from 2021 to 2023, so the 3 seasons before last one, Dak had a touchdown rate of 6.1%. Last year, that was down to 3.8%, which is actually worse than Cooper Rush, Bryce Young, and Will Levis. His yards per attempt also fell from 7.5 to 6.9 last year. Now, the Cowboys' defense is worse than ever than we've seen probably in the Dak era, and the running game is non-existent. This is, in my opinion, the pass-heaviest team in football. I wouldn't be shocked if Dak led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns, honestly. I'm aggressively drafting CD, who is currently second overall for me in PPR. And then Pickens and Ferguson as well, I think are phenomenal targets. While Brian Schottenheimer's been there at OC, they've always been one of the highest pass rate teams, and I'm expecting that to continue this year, especially with that defense and running game.
Yeah, I'm on board with that, man. I've been lockstep with you consistently here, but I think that I have CeeDee Lamb as my wide receiver 1 this year. You know, I have him over Chase. I have him over Justin Jefferson. I have him locked in as wide receiver 1 overall. And that's just this year. That is just for the big hurrah that I think the Cowboys are lining up for. You know, we talked about a little bit backstage about their subtractions in defense and the fact that they are still losing guys, you know, like people that are not under contract right now, looking for a trade out, looking for this, looking for that. They're lined up as an offense to probably have to score 30 points a game. I think that it's going to be a shootout every single game. This defense is going to have this like bend and probably break mentality. Like it's going to be like, there's going to be no in the middle. I think it's going to be like, okay, probably 25 points a game that they're giving up. I think at this point, it's not looking good. And until we see a running back land over there, it's going to be kind of a messy backfield situation. I think we're looking at, you know, Javonte Williams possibly being the ground and pound guy, with Jaden Blue being the pass catcher and Miles Sanders working as depth or whatever, you know, like however that plays out. Those 3 guys don't move me, you know, even if Jaden Blue turns out to be a kind of a stud, which I don't see him being. He's like a good, like, I don't think he's a 3-down back. I think
be like Jalen Warren, maybe. It's kind of a ceiling,
like
in my opinion.
I think he's one of those guys that is speedy. He doesn't have the skill set of like a Devin Achane or anything like that. So it's like, you know, he is going to give you some boom plays and probably be like a spark plug, but he's not going to be a 3-down back by any means, you know? So I think it's going to be ugly in the backfield. I think he's going to have to throw a lot. I think he's going to be throwing, you know, I think CeeDee Lamb's going to get 10 targets a game. I think, you know, Pickens is still going to get his, because if he doesn't, he's pulling an Antonio Brown and throwing his jersey in the stands and probably running off. So I think, you know, I think Pickens is going to be happy. I think that it's going to be actually a good situation for them. You know, obviously Dak likes to sling it. Dak throws the ball as well as anybody out there. And he loves, I don't remember what year it was. Maybe it was 2 years ago. It had to be 2 years ago when he just like massive year, you know, like he was just throwing the ball 50 times a game, was just, you know, it was like big games, you know, massive. CeeDee Lamb was getting 3 touchdowns. I think CeeDee Lamb was the wide receiver 1 that year too. I think it's just really, I think this whole situation replays itself this year. I think that they're in line for one of those monster years, you know, and then I think this might be the last year that the Cowboys have a monster offense, to be honest with you. I think if Dak does what he does this year, he's a massive sell. I would be moving off of him so fast if he has the, you know, quarterback top 5 season that I think we both, you know, predict him to have. But before we get out of here, man, hit me with, I'm going to put you on the spot. Hit me with your top Dynasty sells. Who do you want to get rid of? This is, you know, purely analytics side of guys. They don't have to be surprise guys. They don't have to be like, okay, you don't have to give me reasons either, but just tell me, I might ask you a little bit of why, but tell me a couple guys that you want to move off of, maybe guys that nobody really is moving off of, you know, like the Saquon Barkley's, or, you know what I mean? Like the top tier guys. Is there any reason to be moving off of any of these players from your standpoint?
You know, that's a good question. I think there's always a case to move on from those top running backs in Dynasty. But generally, if they're on your team at this point of the calendar year, it's because you're wanting to compete this year. So you probably shouldn't sell them unless you can get an overpay. The guys that I have been trying to sell recently in my leagues are DK Metcalf in particular and Tyreek Hill. Tyreek, you know, that one's kind of obvious. I just think he's over the cliff, and I don't see it happening again. in terms of the upside at all. And then DK is somebody that I've watched more than any receiver, maybe in my lifetime. I'm a Seahawks fan for what it's worth. And he's a very frustrating player. He is not the jump ball winner you would expect him to be. Last year, he ranked, I believe, wide receiver 100 in contested catch rate. And then he's also just can't really get open downfield like that either. I just don't think his skill set's going to age particularly well. And, the diet plays a role in that too. I just don't trust it as he ages into his upper 20s and 30s. And, in fantasy, DK he really hasn't hit like that as a top 20 receiver in several years. I'm not expecting that to change this year. I want to move on now.
Yeah, the diet thing, I felt like it was a big troll job. I just can't believe that it's real. Like I can't actually believe that this like statue of a man has been like developed off of Skittles and like fruit by the foot. Like I just don't buy into it. I don't know. Is he trolling us, or is he like does he like pretend like he only eats Skittles and then goes home and he's eating filet mignon and broccolini and stuff? Like, what's going on, dude? I can't take it seriously.
He eats one real meal a day and the rest is just candy. I got one more sell for you I just came across. Marvin Harrison Jr. I am big time on the anti-Marv train this year. I won't have a single share anywhere. It's not that I don't think he's a good player. I do think he's a good player, but his skill set matched with his usage, matched with Kyler Murray, I don't see how it works this year. Last year, he was essentially just a contested catch guy on the outside, which is not his game at all. They need to get him running over the middle of the field. But the thing is, Kyler doesn't throw over the middle of the field. There haven't been any changes to the Arizona offense this offseason. So I would sell Marv, as his price hasn't really dropped much from last year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I sold Marvin Harrison and Anthony Richardson for Tyreek Hill. I know that he's a sell, but Jalen Hurts was in there as well.
Superflex?
And then, yeah. So
it was, God, that's a ripoff.
It was Marvin Harrison Jr. I had Marvin Harrison Jr. This was when Anthony Richardson was like probably. So this was peak Marvin Harrison Jr. hype, and then also like peak Anthony Richardson last year, like coming in. Everyone was like, okay, this, so it was like almost reasonable. Anthony Richardson was going in like the first 3 rounds of a super flex draft, but yeah, there was more to it. There was like a pick swap in there, but ultimately
getting Jalen Hurts for Marv and Richardson, like, wow. That's just, that's a top 4 asset in Superflex Dynasty, in my opinion. So can't really do better than that.
It was definitely, I only have 2 shares of Marvin Harrison Jr. I still have one, but I had to hold on to one. I was like, well, just in case. I think I always need 1 share of anybody at that point. But
yeah, I'm looking for reasons to be in on him. I do like him as a player, but I just can't see the reasoning other than, oh, year 2 has to be better than year 1. That's kind of the only reasoning that exists.
Yeah, a lot of the times that's how people look at it. There's never any, okay, because you're right. The situation hasn't changed at all. It's still the same personnel. It's still the same quarterback. It's still the same weapons outside. It's still, Trey McBride's still there. There's nothing that you could even make a case for. You are just hoping that he makes a positive step forward and they develop a better way to use him. But when have we really ever seen a team suddenly figure out how to use a player? It's pretty rare. You know what I mean? Like usually they have him in the role and that's it. Or the offense has to completely change and there's got to be a new offensive coordinator, a new head coach. Like, they usually have to go to a different team, like a Jerry Jeudy type situation for things to really change, because good wide receivers, obviously I'm not comparing Jerry Jeudy to Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think good wide receivers can only be so good under the same mentality, the same line of thinking, the same personnel, the same scheme fit. It's just not going to translate. And you're right, nothing's changed. So how am I to believe that he's suddenly going to be this guy? You know, like even when we saw Drake London and we saw these guys, they had signs that they were going to be, you know, breakout candidates. They were going to pop. Like the Drake London rookie year, his second year, like we saw positive regression every year. We saw these analytics sides of things that were up and up and up. And it's like, I buy into that, but I'm with you. I don't really see, a lot of things have to go right for Marvin Harrison Jr. to take a massive step. And he has to based off his value, right? Because like right now his value is way higher than his production.
For sure.
His value is based on expectation. And whenever a player's value is based on expectation, I can't get in on that value. You know, I can't get in on okay, these are the hopes and dreams and prayers involved in, you know, this is what we looked at Treylon Burks all these years. And these guys that, I hate saying that name on podcasts. It's PTSD, but
yeah,
you know, you held on to Treylon Burks for 3 years, you know, and you said, this is it. Here we go. You know, and that's not Marvin Harrison's thing, but I don't know if he's ever going to be a wide receiver 1. I think he might settle in as a wide receiver 2, you know, like he might settle into that, maybe edging top 15, maybe, but like never going to be a top 10. I think that's really what we have to admit to ourselves.
Yeah. For me, the thing that I would want to see change is probably the quarterback. I just don't think that fit with him and Kyler makes much sense, because I think Marv is best over the middle of the field and Kyler doesn't throw to the middle of the field. You know, he has a hard time seeing it. It's just kind of his play style doesn't match with Marv's at all.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's gotten worse over the years. I think when they had DeAndre Hopkins and you know, in his prime and everything, the Kyler situation worked. But you're right, Kyler does need to throw it a little bit on the outside, and that's where Hopkins got his money. You know, everyone wants to point at the fact that he produced a wide receiver 1 with DeAndre Hopkins, but they're not close to the same play style. You know, like he was on the outside. He was almost like an X at times. Yeah. And before we get out of here, I'll drop my biggest sell and you can tell me why I'm right or wrong. I've been selling Brock Purdy everywhere.
Oh,
I have been. You don't like that?
No.
You don't like that?
I am very much in on Brock Purdy. Is this a talent thing?
I think he's talented.
Okay.
I think he's talented. I think he's talented I think he's got the same talent level as Jared Goff. I think he's got the same talent level as a mid-range Kirk Cousins. You know, like I think that's
top 15 quarterback. That makes sense.
Yes. Where people see him is why I'm selling. People still see Brock Purdy as somebody that they want over a Drake May sometimes. If you're looking at a pure 1-for-1 swap, I think a lot of people want Brock Purdy over somebody like Baker Mayfield. And that's where the selling comes in. You know, if I can sell Brock Purdy for Baker and a plus, or if I can like almost do an even swap for like a Bo Nix or a Drake May, like right now, do you want Bo Nix or do you want Brock Purdy?
Definitely Bo Nix, no question about it, and definitely Drake May. Although I will take Purdy over Baker all day, every day. You know the way I see that.
So if I had Baker in a second for Brock Purdy, would you do that?
Yeah, I would take Purdy there.
You would take Purdy there, Baker in a second. All right, I think I'm taking Baker in a second, to be honest.
Purdy is the guy that I feel very comfortable building around in superflex. Now that he has the contract, especially. I just want the quarterback that's tied to Kyle Shanahan that has some mobility as well. He's not Drake May in that regard, but he does have the mobility, and I'm expecting the San Fran offense to take a big leap this year, which will bring Purdy along.
Really? See, I was actually chalking them up as taking a step down. So this is when the tape guys and the analytic guys don't see eye to eye, and I love this. So I'm looking at them going, I mean, talent-wise. So you're looking at a defense that lost a significant amount of players, not like big-time players, a couple guys that you're looking at that might have an impact on that side of the field for sure, which could net them more usage as far as an offense goes. They could need to put up more points. It could be like a Cowboy situation where they're giving up more points. They got to score more points. But I mean, it's not prime Debo. And I mean, I don't really know what Ayuk's going to be anymore at this point. And we're looking at Ricky Pearsall, Kittle. I mean, they still have the weapons. They still have a decent offense. Is it the offense that he had the past couple of years? Absolutely not. You know, like, does he possibly struggle a little bit, like trying to get the ball into Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, or does Kittle have like 150 targets and just like, you know, be the main guy there? I mean, what is your vision for this offense if you think they're going to take a step forward?
Yeah. So number one, the sports books are expecting them to take a huge leap in terms of points scored. Last year, they were just ravaged by injuries. Basically, everybody on their offense got injured, except for, you know, Purdy and Kittle. And then this year, they also have by far the easiest schedule in the NFL. It's not close. I'm expecting their defense to be worse, as you mentioned, which will make them throw the ball more. And, you know, we've just seen nothing but great offenses from Kyle Shanahan throughout his career. And I'm just going to trust that. And it's still a very talented offense. You mentioned that Debo and Ayuk aren't going to be factors, obviously. But I am just still very in on Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. I like both of them a lot as players. You know, the metrics aren't quite there for Pearsall, but that's, you know, he got shot in the chest. They are there, very much there for Juwan Jennings.
Yeah. All right. So I sold Brock Purdy for Jared Goff and Xavier Worthy. You like that or you don't like that?
Oh yeah, that's a good move. That's a good.
You like that?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Because
cool.
I mean, at the end of the day, I am low on Goff this year, but who knows how he's going to produce? He's a pocket passer. They're very difficult to predict, but he could very easily outscore Brock Purdy again, as he did last year. And now you get a young receiver with a ton of upside.
One more, Brock Purdy or Jordan Love?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I am going to lean Brock Purdy, but I think I have them back to back in the dynasty rankings.
If we're talking regression, I think positive regression's on deck for Jordan Love.
Yes, I definitely agree with that.
You know, injuries and all that good stuff. I think the addition to Matthew Golden, I think that he's looking at a revival year for sure. You can throw Love and then Stroud in there as well. I think Stroud is positive regression if we're going to cap this pod off with a couple of extra guys there at the end. Dude, I appreciate you joining us today, man. I appreciate everything you brought to the table. You are a lovely human, and drop anything that you have that people want to hear. I know you're doing a solo pod this year. You're doing the analytics pod and all that good stuff. Is there anything that you want the audience to know about before we get out of here?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I had a great time. You can follow me on Twitter at Evan Ringler FF. And besides that, you can find all of my work at PlayerProfiler.com. I run the analytics over there, and then I'm also involved in all the rankings. So subscribe to that player rankings package to get all of my stuff. And I'm not sure exactly what I'll be doing on the podcast front this season, but I will have something regular that you can tune into to get your weekly dose of analytics.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the work that you put in. Definitely go follow Evan on X, and then look out for all of his stuff over there on Player Profiler. As far as the Degens go, we are not doing the Dynasty show. We're all moving over. We're going, to Canton, and I think that's just gonna be a little too much with everyone in motion right now to get a show off. But I think I mentioned it before. I am dropping a video tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern time on Player Profiler now. So if you get a chance to check that out, that is all of the camp hype guys that I am in on, that I believe in, that I think if you're hearing the talk, you should probably listen for sure. So look out for that, and then we'll catch you guys next week. Thank you.